So far, we've separated the instructions of what we want to do. We want to add Ponka to this image post from the logic that actually does that work. And it's a nice coding pattern. It's easy to test, and if we need to add Ponka to an image from anywhere else on our system, it will be super pleasant. But this pattern unlocks some serious possibilities. Think about it. Now that we've isolated the instructions on what we want to do, instead of handling the command object immediately, couldn't we, in theory, save that object somewhere, then read and process it later? That's basically how a queuing system works. The advantage is that, depending on your setup, you could put less load on your web server and give users a faster experience. Like right now, when a user clicks to upload a file, it takes a few seconds before it finally pops over here. It's not the biggest deal, but it's not ideal. If we can fix that easily, why not? In Messenger, the key to saving work for later is a system called transports. Open up config packages messenger.yaml. See that transports key? The details are actually configured in .env. Here's the idea. We're going to say to Messenger, yo, when I create an add Ponka to image object, instead of handling it immediately, I want you to send it somewhere else. That somewhere else is a transport, and a transport is usually a queue. If you're new to queuing, the idea is refreshingly simple. A queue is an external system that holds onto information in a big list. In our case, it will hold onto serialized message objects. When we send it another message, it adds it to the list. Later, you can read those messages from the queue one by one, handle them, and when you're done, the queue will remove it from the list. Sure, robust queuing systems have a lot of other bells and whistles, but that really is the main concept. There are a bunch of queuing systems available, like RabbitMQ, Amazon SQS, Kafka, and queuing at the supermarket. Out of the box, Messenger supports 3. AMQP, which basically means RabbitMQ, but technically means any system that implements the AMQP spec, Doctrine, and Redis. AMQP is the most powerful, but unless you're already a queuing pro and want to do something crazy, these all work exactly the same. Oh, and if you need to talk to some unsupported transport, Messenger integrates with another library called Enqueue, which supports a bunch more. Because I'm already using Doctrine in this project, let's use the Doctrine transport. Uncomment the environment variable for that. See this : //default part? That tells the Doctrine transport that we want to use the default Doctrine connection. Yep, it'll reuse the connection you've already set up in your app to store the messages inside a new table. More on that soon. Now, back in messenger.yaml, uncomment this async transport, which uses that messenger transport DSN environment variable we just created. The name, async, isn't important. That could be anything. But in a second, we'll start referencing that name. At this point, yay! We've told Messenger that we have an async transport. And if we went back and uploaded a file now, it would make absolutely no difference. It would still be processed immediately. Why? Because we need to tell Messenger that this message should be sent to that transport instead of being handled right now. Back in messenger.yaml, see this routing key? When we dispatch a message, Messenger looks at all of the classes in this list, which is 0 right now if you don't count the comment, and looks for our class, add Ponka to image. If it doesn't find the class, it handles the message immediately. Let's tell Messenger to, instead, send that to the async transport. Set app/message/add Ponka to image to async. As soon as we do that, it makes a huge difference. Watch how fast the image loads on the right after uploading. Boom! That was faster than before, and Ponca isn't there. Gasp! Actually, let's try one more. That first image was a little bit slow because Symfony was rebuilding its cache. This one should be nearly instant. It is! Instead of calling our handler immediately, Messenger is sending our message to the Doctrine transport. And, what does that actually mean? Find your terminal, or whatever tool you like to use to play with databases. I'll use the MySQL client to connect to the messenger_tutorial database. Inside, let's show tables. Whoa! We expected migration versions and image post, but suddenly we have a third table called messenger_messages. Let's see what's in there. Select star from messenger_messages. Nice! It has 2 rows for our 2 messages. Let's use the magic /G to format this nicer. Cool! The body holds our object. It's been serialized using PHP's serialize function, though that can be configured. The object is wrapped inside something called an envelope. But inside, we can see our add Ponca to image object and the image post inside of that, complete with the file name, created at date, etc. Wait, but where did this table come from? By default, if it's not there, Messenger creates it for you. If you don't want that, there's a config option called auto_setup to disable this. I'll show you how later. If you did disable auto setup, you could then use the handy setup-transports command on deploy to create that table for you. This doesn't do anything now because the table is already there. Hey, this was a huge step. Whenever we upload images, they are not being handled immediately. When we upload 2 more, they're being sent to Doctrine, and it is keeping track of them. Thanks, Doctrine. Next, it's time to read those messages one by one and start handling them. We do that with a console command called a worker.